All right, we'll call to order the December meeting of the Fargo Park District Park Board. Moving on to letter A, call to order. We did that. We're going to move on to B, approve the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
No changes,
No
Mr.
changes?
President.
Okay,
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Can I
Motion-
just ask whether you connected with Susan?
She's online?
She is online.
She's online.
Yes, she
Okay,
is.
good. All right.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I am here. I am just upstairs. Sorry that I can't be with you all downstairs.
No worries. Thank you. We're just glad you're here. All right, moving on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve as presented. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Please pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda, number one, recognition of the audience, public comments. Is there anybody from the general public that's here tonight that would like to address the board outside of the regular agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to number two, the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Susan has asked me to present this report tonight. As you heard, she is in the building. She is isolating from us. In regard to us, she's not feeling the best, so she's taking steps to make sure she's being responsible in that nature. But anyway, she's asked me to present this report to you tonight, so I'll gladly do that. Just want to update you a little bit about a pretty cool feature we're proud of at Santa Village. So as you know, Santa Village has been going on for the last couple of weeks. This Friday, we have a sensory-friendly night at Santa Village. And so this is an effort that we've undertaken, and I give great credit to our events and recreation department. We realize that there's members of our community that we serve that have different sensory, I guess the right word would be, I don't know the right word there, but there's just areas there that are more helpful to people that might have sensory aversions, maybe is the right way to put that. Anyway, we're proud to have that. And what that includes is we're going to have a more friendly and welcoming environment by playing a little bit quieter Christmas music. There's going to be quiet time with Santa, so we'll have the same premise where kids can come up and visit with Santa, but it'll be a little less maybe chaotic. I've been there with my kids, and so it can get a little bit rambunctious at times. We're going to have sensory kits available too for kids or adults that may want to participate in that. And then just also an identified quiet space for people to enjoy. And so we're pretty proud of that. In addition to that, Santa Village is wrapping up. As we know, we're getting close to the holiday and Christmas season. Our last day will be Friday, December 22nd. And so we're inching closer to that all the time. A little bit of an update from our Parks Department. Tony and his group wanted me to mention to you this evening that we're starting to get some phone calls about when will the outdoor ice rinks be ready. I think we all realize that the temperatures we're experiencing are unseasonably warm, which I think many of us, including me, are okay with, but it does come at a cost, right? We don't have some of those outdoor amenities ready. So wanted to just send that message to you. I'm sure you may start to hear some of those comments. Also with our cross-country skiing, obviously we don't have enough snow yet to pack ski trails adequately. So just wanted to send that message to you. A little bit of information from Courts Plus. Tonight is actually their member appreciation party. So that's an annual party that the staff at Courts Plus serves a meal to all of the members that want to participate at Courts Plus. So that's taking place tonight. This past week, they also hosted a tennis tournament with great participation. They had over 130 participants. in that tournament. So Kelly and team wanted me to mention that to you. And also, Susan and I just wanted to provide an update on the strategic planning process. Yesterday, we held our partnership forum. That was an event where we reached out to about 30 different partners that the Park District works with. Dr. Schatz facilitated. He asked a series of questions very similar to the questions that were asked in the survey, both for staff and then also some of the conversations with you as board members. It was really a great event. I think it was a time for us to get some of that outside perspective from the groups that we work close with and have great relationships with. Next steps are, that was kind of the conclusion, if you will, of phase one, which was the information gathering phase. That, in addition to all the surveys that we've done, we're collecting all that data. Now we'll transition into phase two, which is really identifying the members of the strategic planning committee. That group will consist of a multitude of people. We do have a meeting tomorrow. I know Commissioner Rosted is participating in that as the representative from the board. We'll start to identify what that committee will look like, and also the dates that that committee will meet. What that committee will do is they'll start to take all of this information and data that was collected and start to look for the common themes that will eventually become part of our plan. So we're excited about that. We felt that yesterday was a very good turnout and we had great participation. And so that concludes my updates. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions on these items or others that you may have.
I understand that there are 24 people that are going to be on that committee.
That's correct, Commissioner Morgan, and it may even be a little more than that. We have some latitude there. Dr. Schatz has told us that you don't want to get much more than about 30, 32 people because then it just becomes too large. And so we're zeroing in on what that is, and certainly we want to extend the invitation if there's people the commissioners feel strongly about participating in that. Please submit those names to us, and we'll put that into the overall group of names that we've already started and zero in on who that committee will be.
I was just wondering how you're doing with your selection. It seems like 24 people is a lot, but.
It is a lot, and we're looking for a good cross representation. We've had people reach out to us and ask if they can participate in that, so that's great. We've had a pretty good response from our staff. We sent an internal communication out asking for people that would be willing and wanting to participate from a staff level. We're going to look for a board member or two from this board and also the foundation board. And so once we start to stack all of those together, the number climbs relatively quickly. So it's kind of a good challenge if we have too many names. I don't want to exclude anybody, but at the same time, we want a really good cross representation of people.
Thank you.
We're good?
All right. Thank you.
All right, moving on to number 3. We're going to hear from the Downtown Community Partnership presentation from Mr. Rocky Schneider.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So
Welcome.
I'm Rocky Schneider with the Downtown Community Partnership. I was joking. I think I'm on week 10 now of my new role, and you can still count the weeks up until 3 months, like a baby, kind of. So, but no, I appreciate coming here. The Park District's something near and dear to me. I think my first 2 jobs was with the Park District 27 years ago I started, so it's always fun to still be here and serving our community. So appreciate everything you guys do. I was part of the strategic planning session yesterday too, and I enjoyed that. In my new role as the Downtown Community Partnership, I also administer the Business Improvement District with Victor Heitkamp back there, and we do a lot of fun partnerships with the city, and kind of bringing that perspective to that strategic planning process was really important, I think. But I know we've been at a number of Park District meetings with park staff over the last 2 months, and so I wanted to take an opportunity to come here, especially while you're still so close. But what I really thought was neat is that right now in our community, you guys are going through a strategic plan. The school district's going through one. I'm also chair of the Fargo Planning Commission, which I've been on for 10 years now, and we're going through a growth plan, but we also just came out with an updated downtown and focus plan as well. And so trying to look at things through a couple different lenses. One of the things I've kind of take heart to now that I kind of looked at our downtown in a different perspective with my new role is, when we approve a new development in South Fargo on the Planning Commission, we have such a strong relationships with the parks. There's all these kind of natural triggers that go in. So when we do a new development, we make sure that they have, playground and trails and all these amenities. And it kind of made me realize that, with the growth that we've seen and kind of different trend in our growth patterns, both in downtown and the core neighborhoods through the infill process. When we approve, 150 unit apartment building downtown, there's not those same natural triggers. And so as we're sort of pushing for greater density through the growth plan at the city, and we've seen the growth in downtown. One of my new favorite stats since I started this job was, so since 2017, the city's grown a lot, but it surprised me that 13% of all the new housing units in the city came in downtown in that period. So about 1 out of every 8 new housing unit. So when you start to think about, what we provide to, greenfield development areas, which I think we provide very well and Park District provides very well. When you move downtown as a new housing unit, you're not getting that same level of service, I don't believe anyways. And so it's something I think as a city and as a Park District, we need to take a closer look at. It's kind of a new problem for us. We haven't had that type of infill focus before. And looking at what the growth plan, I think there's a couple of people here that were at that meeting today where they first released the results of some of the preferred path that's going in the new growth plan for the city. They expect that same 13% or maybe even a little more. That's the future trend for downtown as well. So downtown's going to continue to grow by thousands of people. And so as those people come in, we want to make sure that, I want to make sure that they're getting the amenities that we're providing in other areas of town. And I know this is one of the issues that my counterparts across the country really face. Unfortunately, we don't have that issue here, but when you look at it kind of nationwide, generally downtown populations, more urban populations are lower income or minority populations. And so you start to get into a real equity issue where, new developments getting services that an urban population isn't. So I want to avoid us being in the news for that sort of thing. So I just, with the Fargo kind of seeing a focus as a city on a downtown plan, I hope through the strategic planning process, and I tried to bring it out yesterday too, that, we should look with the changing growth patterns and the infill process, just that the parks also considers that going forward. And I think, we potentially play a role in that. I know with the city of Fargo, a lot of the services they provide, and we have our taxing district that we provide a lot of services. Downtown's different. And I think working with the directors at the city, they've realized that their systems they have in place don't work in sort of a dense environment like downtown. So we have some services that they run through us and trying to figure out what that looks like. I'm not an expert on urban parks, but I would encourage, you guys have probably your counterparts as well that deal with these issues. What does an urban park look like? How is it different than our traditional neighborhoods? And just, what can we do to provide that? And I'm big on pedestrian counters and trying to track our events and things like that downtown. And I, talked with Joel at Folkways on this as well, but we have a tracking through MetroCog, which I'm on the board of. There's a tracker right outside the black building where our new offices are. You should come visit. They're beautiful. Aaron was just up there. That's great. But yeah, so if you look at that, there's on average, there's 1,500 people a day that walk by that counter. And when you think about it in the context of, if you ask somebody, what's the busiest outdoor path in the state of North Dakota? You'd probably surprise them by saying the sidewalk on Broadway, right? And so if that's how, the busiest path outside, if that's how people are getting their outdoor activity or how they're recreating in an urban area, trying to figure out, do we need to come to them to meet the needs instead of trying to draw them to a more traditional park or trail system? And maybe just one other thing I've been working on and hoping that the city, I know it's in their in focus plan, and I think Parks plays a role in it as well. It's just better wayfinding downtown. I ride bike a lot and I love the paths along the river. And I live just north of downtown, and it's always amazed me that you can ride the whole river path and not realize you just rode by downtown or that you are 1 block away from Island Park. It's the type of signage that would be so simple and helpful to our economy to saying, hey, stores this way, coffee shops this way. And vice versa with the Jasper moving downtown. One of the most common questions they get is, where can I go for a run? They don't know when they're in downtown because there's not simple signage saying, hey, amazing bike paths, miles and miles of them just a couple blocks away. So trying to figure out how we do that as signage downtown, but then vice versa, signage from the trails to downtown as well. So I know it's one of my priorities and hoping we can work together on what that looks like and what that feels like. So there's a good consistency. But anyways, I'm new. So I have lots of ideas that probably won't all work, but I appreciate the partnership so far. Working with the lady upstairs and Dave, I think it's going to be great with new leadership. We've also sort of suffered from inconsistent, turnover at my role. And so I'm hoping I can stabilize that as well. And we can do great things for the people.
I'd like to mention one thing, excuse me. I think it was a few years ago that there was a study done about the atmosphere in downtown in terms of whether it was healthy. And one of the goals of course, the Parks Department is healthy environments. And so have you heard anything about how that's being addressed? Because, the green space is the usual answer.
Yeah.
And so, but with the way downtown is partitioned, how do we do that? So, do you have an answer? Or, one thing
No. I generally always have an answer. It's not always right is the problem. But, I think we use green space, right, a lot in our planning world. Don sits with me on the planning commission, and sometimes it doesn't always have to be green. I think one of the most popular things the park district has in my family is the indoor playgrounds. My kids love those. It's not green space, but it's a pretty great amenity. And so are there something equivalent to that? I'm also just got a notice today for an invoice from the parks, that we do. It was a $15,000 invoice to do the flower plantings, the hanging pots on Broadway, for instance. And so does that make it green space if people walk along, beautified paths like that? Probably to a lot of people. It's different, I think, way of looking at green space. I know I joked on Facebook, I think Commissioner Kolpak at the city, walks the Skyway, which if you walk the Skyway ever, there's a lot of people that get their exercise through that. And it's probably the most boring path because there's nothing in there anymore. There's no art. There's not much visual to look at, nothing stimulating, but it's a great path. A lot of people use for their workouts. Is there things we could do to kind of meet the essence of green space?
I think part of it is air quality too. That the reference was to because there wasn't enough green space producing oxygen and other benefits that the air quality was deficient. So, you could approach it from that direction too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it seems like the DCP is kind of moving in a different direction than it traditionally has. Since you're in week 10 now, could you maybe talk about maybe what the DCP historically has been or was, and then maybe what is kind of the modern current vision?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Yeah, DCP has gone through different iterations of leaders that brought something different to it and different needs. I think one of the things I've tried to focus on too is that we're probably a neighborhood for the first time, where we're a real neighborhood. I think 4,500 people in downtown, and it continues to grow. It's a pretty dense area where we haven't had that significant population, which just brings a whole different needs to it. We're not just a 8 to 5 commercial corporate office space anymore. It's a active sort of all times of day and night. I think obviously Broadway, Square is amazing amenity, and I know we're working through some long-term challenges of that, but I appreciate everybody's efforts to sort of tackle that, because I think we all know. The tree lighting event you had last week now, 2 weeks ago. That was great. I think everybody loves it. So how do we make that work? Because it is new. So it's a different type of partnership, and trying to figure out, how do we recreate that in a sustainable way long term? Because I think we've shown the success of the outcome. We just need to make sure all the pieces fit together, right? And I think that's okay. But what I see from Broadway Square is different than what I've seen in some of the discussions you've had through our friend on YouTube there. Watching the past meetings is as a park, it gets used, almost 24 hours a day. And a lot of the focus is, on the event portions of it, which are great too, brings a different type of people, but it's an active park the rest of the day too. When you walk around it, you see people there, charging their phones or sitting in the sun, with family eating ice cream from across the street, spinning in the little chairs, or playing in the splash pad. And so it's more than an event center. It's a neighborhood park. It's a tourism draw. I think it benefits the local businesses. And I know one of the discussions we've had is, don't want to get into all the details, but our business improvement district that the local businesses pay into, we met a couple weeks ago for our budget, and in the budget next year, we've included a $30,000 estimate that would enhance, sort of treat that as we do Zone 1, which is our Broadway zone, so that we would incorporate that as public space into the cleaning and maintenance, which I think would take it off the plate of the park district. Because I know one of the topics is that, is it a public park, right? I mean, like you guys have asked that question, and that's a fair question. I think our group feels like we should treat it like one. And so we've included, as we would if it was public right away on Broadway. So we'd go through, and Victor's team would, clean and help maintain that on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, so I think our focus is a little different, trying to figure out the policies of how's the growing downtown, what does that change for us as a community? It's not just a cheerleader of events or, trying to draw people downtown. I think downtown's great. I think, Folkways and we've created an entity downtown where other people can do successful events. We don't necessarily need to be that center. We still have our legacy events, but I think we want to just make sure as a community that we're doing everything else we need to as a metro area.
I really like your idea of signage and maybe some marketing materials that people that stay at the Jasper, or they stay at the not Ramada,
The Radisson. Yeah.
Radisson. Where do I go for a run? Like 2 blocks over and you're on a path. I think that's a good idea. Low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. The amenities are already there, right? We're just not steering enough people towards it because, like you said, traditionally, you're not in such a dense area. And so a sign in a dense area can go a lot further than a sign near 1 or 2 hotels out, what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it just, I think that's a great idea too. And I think it could go a long way. And like you said, the infrastructure is already there, so to speak. So,
yeah.
Well, I can't wait until you're talking in years instead of weeks, so.
Well, that's what I'm here for. Yeah. I think I last presented here about 8 years ago.
After a year, what you've accomplished.
Well, good. Thank you. I'll be back.
Fantastic. Thank you.
thanks, Rocky.
Thanks, Rocky.
Rocky.
All right. Moving on to number 4, board to consider approval, new lease for the Rose Creek Restaurant. Carolyn presenting.
Commissioners, in your packet is a draft of a lease with CJ's Tavern, and we have the representatives, Brad and Cody and Jordan, which I invite to come up to the podium and introduce themselves and talk to you about their goals, vision, and dreams for the restaurant at Rose Creek.
And maybe before you get in your goals, visions, and dreams, maybe just a little background,
Sure.
where you came from.
First off, excuse me, thanks for allowing us to come in and speak to you. Thank you also for your service in the Navy.
Oh.
So my name is Brad Erpelding, and I'm flanked by my stepson Cody and my son Jordan, hence the name CJ's Tavern. The idea was born, probably 3-4 months ago. Jordan and I and Cody, we all like golf and like to go to Rose Creek, etc. Our frustration became, after golf, you like to go have a burger and a beer. And twice it was closed, we couldn't get either. And the other 2 times we got a beer, couldn't get a burger. So we pursued Andy, had a great relationship with him. And we started out that way. We started a company called Up North Hospitality, LLC, the 3 of us and my other son, Brett. So we started working with Carolyn, Dave, Matt, Brock. There's Brock. We had a great time getting us to this point. We've gone through a lot of different things. So I'm going to let Cody and Jordan kind of share the vision of what it's going to look like. But to answer your question, my background as it relates to bar restaurant, I managed an American Legion in Black Duck, Minnesota a long time ago. Fortunate to take it from nearly closing the doors to burning the mortgage in a matter of a year and a half. Next opportunity, I owned a family-style restaurant in the city of Black Duck and ran it every aspect of it. I'm not going to be involved other than financially in this operation. It'll be mainly Cody and Jordan, so I'll let them kind of give you the experience levels they have. So, Cody.
Yeah. Pretty much my whole adult life has been in restaurants and bars, starting as a dishwasher to the same American Legion that Brad ran. I was the assistant manager at one point. Small town bars, into college in Bemidji, resort bars, restaurants, upscale steakhouses, you name it. That's what I've been doing my whole life. COVID kind of screwed that up for me. Minnesota got hit hard, the restaurant industry did. So moved here for a new opportunity and just looking to get back in the industry. Kind of been chomping at the bit to get back in. So I'll be handling front of house operations, general manager. Really looking forward to it. I'll let Jordan finish what he's doing.
Yeah, I got quite the background. I've done a lot of different things. My brother and I started Northland Vapor back in 2015. After that, I was down in Dallas, Texas, doing some real estate development with a couple good friends. Moved back here about 2.5 years ago, and again, just this year being at the golf course, kind of saw it not operating as it should, and I play there quite a bit. I live over in that area, and just knew there needed to be something better, so we kind of started diving into it, peeling back the onion, if you will, and I'll be running the events. That beautiful event center downstairs, I think, needs to be fully operational all the time. So that's something I'll be handling myself full time with that, assisting Cody in anything bar and restaurant up there as well. So vision for the place, we see it upscale or quality bar food, I guess, bar restaurant food like that. We want the burgers, the wings, more of a sports bar atmosphere. I think it fits in with the golfers really well at Rose Creek, and just want an easygoing, fun place for everybody to come to and know that we're going to be open and have good quality food and service. So.
Well, one thing I heard, as soon as you said Black Duck, I thought of seasonality. And if that hasn't been our biggest challenge, is our seasonality. And if you've been able to handle the seasons in Black Duck and any other small town resort area, you understand the challenges that come with it. So that hopefully helps you guys have a head start on, okay, how do we handle these hills and valleys?
Oh,
The
that's,
swings, would you
very
call them
astute.
swings? Sorry, that was bad pun joke.
And we found out just before the meeting, Aaron had already met Cody when Cody was managing one of the bars of Bemidji, Rutgers Birchmont Lodge. So
Yeah, I just was kind of meeting these gentlemen before the meeting, and we figured out back when I spent a decent amount of time in Bemidji calling on accounts there. Rutgers is the resort that Cody worked at. That's the same resort that I work, the same family. The resort I worked at was in Brainerd area. I think they were brothers, or there was family relationship, same family. Anyway, so I was like, there's a person that I used to call on, and it was him. I mean, that was I don't even want to know how many years ago that was. So that at least made me feel a little more comfortable that you guys do have, and you also have, Bemidji is also a very seasonal area as well. Well, yeah, you guys would shut down. Rutgers would shut down in the winter there.
Yeah, no longer do towards the end of my time there. We can year round. But
Okay.
The first few years I was managing the place, we shut down.
Yep.
in the winter.
The one I worked at, we shut down entirely for the winter. And so I think that is, Commissioner Dawson was saying, that's kind of been, we feel like part of the issue is, it's like you have these swells of customers in the summer, and you have these events and golf events. And then in the winter, it slows down a lot.
well, we learned that you had to add things, make things happen in the season. Like my family style restaurant, we couldn't be closed or only open in the summertime. American Legion, same thing. So you created opportunity. And we knew coming into this opportunity that it wasn't required to be open 12 months of the year, but we wanted to be. We think there's opportunity. That part of Fargo is so underserved for quality places for people to go to. And the event center, again, seasonality, there's corporate events can take place anytime. Christmas parties no longer happen in December. Everybody waits until January, February when they're not so darn busy with all their personal stuff. We want to try to capitalize on all of that. biggest thing we need to get is a good reputation. Get a good product out the door, be open when you're supposed to be open, because anytime someone goes somewhere and it's closed, they don't know the next time to even drive out there. I don't know if they're going to be open. And we've been very aggressive on the hours that we want to be open. We understand first and foremost is to serve the golfers, the golf course, working with Matt. Jordan, as the events coordinator, is going to be definitely have Matt on his speed dial, and hopefully vice versa, Matt. We are also bringing gaming to another level. We've met with your foundation, in fact, and they've agreed to sponsor things. We want to do Sunday bingo, meat raffles, the video, what are they called, E-tabs? E-tabs, a blackjack table. We got a beautiful layout of where it's going to be. Can't wait to share it with everybody, or probably a drawing in their packets of what the casino is going to look, or the gaming room is going to look like. But we're going to take a very aggressive approach. I know that in talking with Carolyn and Brock especially, that you don't like going through this every year. And we would like it to be a 10 to 15 year commitment where you don't have to go through it again. So both Jordan and Cody are going to quit their day jobs, and this is going to become their life. And we're going to make it successful.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Well, I like the ambition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just sort of highlighting some of the things that are listed in the lease agreement. As they mentioned, they will be open year-round. We have specific hours in the lease to talk about the golf season. And again, they're very aggressive. Matt's very happy with it. I think the golfers will be very happy with it. Also, they plan to use the restaurant, grill, and banquet room. I know previously we had taken out the banquet room. But again, with their plans, it's important for them to have control of that. Snow removal, because they're open year round, will be shared in the sense that the park district will be responsible for the parking lot, and then the sidewalks and the entryways will be the responsibility of the restaurant. The rent is proposed at 12% of gross sales for the first 3 years, with an escalator for years 4 and 5. So it is a 5-year term with 2 opportunities for that to be renewed. And then the cleaning of the common areas will be the responsibility of the tenant year-round, but in the golf season, we will have some financial responsibility to pay for that, again, based on the use of the course and the number of golfers that come into the facility. And again, at this point, they don't plan to make any improvements to the restaurant. There isn't anything cosmetic other than a few signs and maybe moving some furniture and equipment around. So at this point, they're looking at opening as soon as possible in January. This is contingent upon them getting their liquor license. They have a meeting with the city next week with the Liquor Control Board, and then if all goes well, right after Christmas, they have the commission approve that license transfer. And so we are currently looking at working with them with the amount of equipment that we have, dishes, flatware, and that, having an amendment to the agreement to clarify how that is taken care of. It currently says that dishes, flatware, glassware is the responsibility of them to replace as it is needed. But as we are looking at a long-term agreement, we're looking at the park district taking care of the tables, chairs, and the kitchen equipment, and anything that's service related in regards to dishes, TVs, things that make the bar and restaurant their look and feel would be theirs then to eventually take over. And so you'll see that coming up in a future board meeting. But at this point, we feel very comfortable with this lease. We hope that you do. Do you have any questions about anything that's in there or anything that has been stated tonight?
So I'm guessing when you say banquet room, you're talking the room that's downstairs, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where we've had the Goose Johnson meal.
correct. Mhm.
With the liquor license, remind me, did that liquor license in particular, was it like a 6-month or 7-month? Didn't we kind of go through that previously?
Yeah, it is something that with the way the liquor license is set up, they can apply and have a year-round one.
Okay.
Or narrow it down to 6
Got it.
months.
Okay.
So again, working with the city, they can make those arrangements and those adjustments. We have written the lease that if in the future they would decide not to be open in the winter, that they could notify us in September so that the opportunity is there for them to do remodeling or, you know, something else. But the intent right now is to be open year round.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, since you haven't been in the restaurant business recently, how have you gone about establishing relationships with vendors?
Yeah, last week and this week, Cody and Jordan, and again, I've been out of it a long time. They haven't so much, but met with Cisco today, was it US Foods last week. They're building their lender or vendor list based on the past, as well as people they've known from the industry in their past jobs. So
Yeah, DS Beverage I work with currently at the current job that I have. I have in the past, Bergseth Brewing, Bergseth Distributing, very close with. I'm actually uncomfortably full from being at the Cisco meeting. We just
At least you're not uncomfortable from a meeting with Bergseth.
That's where I thought you were going.
that's our next meeting.
It seems like it's gonna happen really fast, so you must be working hard right now.
We have to, yes.
A lot of boxes to check, and the last 2 boxes was this meeting and the Liquor Control Board meeting, and yeah, we've been putting in a lot of hours betting on the come, as they say in Vegas, but hoping it happens because we got things lined up. So
Well, I'm excited for you. I've got a brother who lives in the neighborhood. I've heard friends that live in the neighborhood. They all say we want this neighborhood restaurant, and then for whatever reason there has been struggles. And so I hope that I like the fact that you gave some ideas as far as, you said bringing some reasons to get people in there and forging those relationships. And I mean, there's a relationship there. We just have to figure out a way to make the connection. So I'm excited for you guys to be excited about that.
And in working with Carolyn and Brock, we think we got a lease agreement put together that's designed to allow us to be successful. So we're excited about it.
Awesome.
Great, now I'm hungry
Great
for a
news.
burger.
Don't say burger right now.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Well,
The
with
lease?
that, I'll move to approve the new lease for the restaurant at Rose Creek Public Golf Course as presented.
Second.
Just to clarify before we vote that I will abstain as a, equity holder in a alcohol manufacturing business. I won't, for the record, that's why I'm abstaining from the vote. So I won't vote on this.
Okay, Jeff, please pull the board. Oh, I'm sorry, is there any other discussion?
Is there any contingencies if contingent upon the liquor license, or is that already built in?
In the lease, it specifically says that this is contingent upon them getting a liquor license. Yes.
Read through it, but I didn't fine tooth comb it, so.
Yeah. So again, there are protections for them as well if something would go awry.
Any other discussion? Jeff, please pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch, with Commissioner Hill abstaining.
Oh, yeah,
Abstain.
good point.
Yep.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. You threw me off there, Jeff.
Wasn't the order.
Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're excited
Good
to work
luck.
with you guys. So.
Better hurry up, I'm still hungry.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
All right, moving on to number 5, board to consider for approval the request for the 2024 budget adjustment. Brock to present.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. We come to you tonight with this agenda item for you to consider approval of a request for an adjustment for the 2024 2024 budget. As we discussed with you at the November facilities meeting, we had a procedural error when we presented the preliminary budget for 2024. And as a result of that error, in working with our legal counsel as well as our counterparts at the county, we were not able to make a correction following the final budget approval and certification in October. And as a result, we need to make some adjustments to the 2024 budget. I want to assure the commission and the public that all material presented to you at budget meetings, preliminary budget, public budget meetings, public board meetings for preliminary budget, as well as final budget meetings and final board meetings, as well as what was posted in the Fargo Forum and that which was presented at our public budget hearing, were accurate as intended by administration and the board. All action you took was consistent with what had been presented to you, which called for a reduction of 1.35 mils and showed revenue and expenditures that balanced the budget for 2024. Procedurally, what happened is when the budget was presented to the county, the preliminary budget, the wrong file was attached mistakenly to that budget, and the county then proceeded to work off of that budget that was presented, which reflected a much more significant change in the mill levy as well as the dollars collected. The end result of that is that the public will see a 4.01 mill reduction from the park district in the 2024 budget. So they will see less of a tax rate than originally presented at all of those meetings that I discussed with you. We immediately took this information as soon as we found out about it in late October, took this information to Interim Director Foss as well as Deputy Director Beats, and started to work on how do we make appropriate adjustments to make the park district whole from a financial perspective. You see in your packet the approvals that we are asking you for in budget adjustments. The change that results from this is approximately $2.2 million less in revenue that is collected. That is able to be offset in a one-time basis, predominantly from two pieces that were not in the budget because we did not know about them at the time we brought final budget for you to approve. As you are aware, we most recently agreed in principle with the county on the sale of an asset. That sale will bring us $850,000. That sale was not in place, even in principle, at time of final budget approval. So we wouldn't have put that in there because we don't want to count on revenues that we don't believe would be present. Secondly, we issued the second bond, as you recall, for our two major capital projects after the final budget approval. And as we receive those revenues, we continue to do the best work we can with our financial advising partners on short and long-term investments. And so we locked in short-term investment rates with our partners that will see us realize an additional $1 million in short-term interest with those funds. Again, all of that happened after October 10th, so we did not count on those revenues until we had signed approvals from our lending partners. So of the $2.2 million shortfall, $1.8 million of that is made up in two items that were not in the budget at the time because they were not knowledgeable to us at that time. The remainder of the balance is made up in the internal transfer line. As you know, we build in an internal transfer that helps us with our long-range capital plans. That internal transfer originally was built in at about $2.1 million. We will reduce that transfer to $1.6 million, and we will use those dollars to offset the remainder of the difference in the tax collection. With that, we feel very confident as an administration and meeting with our leadership team that all budgets that were presented by departments are made whole and can move forward and proceed with business as usual for 2024. It's important for you to know that most of these are made up with one-time dollars that will not be available to us in the future, but it does allow us to continue to do all of the work and provide all the programs and proceed just as we intended to and as you intended to in the budgets that you passed. We set budgets every year, and we will start that process early on in 2024 to start building the budget for the following year. Couple of things that we have put into place to guard against this in the future is that we will start the process much sooner, and we will get information in front of all of our team members sooner. We also will make sure that we are sending all preliminary and final approvals, not only to our executive team, but to our entire leadership team to review before that we send them out to our counterparts. The other thing is within our department, we will set what we would call black dates for any leave or vacation, so that there are certain times, audit time, budget time, et cetera, where we're going to make sure that we have an all hands on deck approach and make sure that we are here and present for all the items that we need. Again, I want to make sure to thank and appreciate the work that our legal counsel did. Thank our counterparts at the county for working with us and looking for alternatives. There's a statutory provision that does not allow park districts as a political sub to make adjustments following final certification, and not for lack of effort by our counterparts at the county, who really helped us look for solutions. When that was not able to be done, we had alternative solutions here that we could do to make the budget whole for 2024. With that, we would ask for your approval of the adjustments that we presented to you, and I would be available for any questions that you might have.
So one question that I have, and if you don't have the answer, we can circle back, but what is this, what's the downstream impact on next year's, but what are we going to end up looking like? Are we going to have a bigger delta to get back to where we should have been, or what is that, or haven't you looked at it, or?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Rosted. We have looked at that, and certainly the impact of this is really opportunity costs in the future. And these dollars that we have as one-time dollars, as we presented you status for the 2023 budget, one of the questions that came is, as we realized additional interest income, what happens to those dollars? Well, what happens to those is they become part of our year-end balance and part of our reserves, and they really build into our future and our capital projects. So as we now have taken the steps we've talked about for 2024, we understand that it has the potential to slow progress on our long-range capital plans. That being said, we work annually on our budget to make sure that we're balancing and resetting that the dollars needed to run the park district on an annual basis. So I think we'll look at those alternatives as we go forward. We aren't going to know really the end result of this, because there's things, as we've talked about in the past, we have a certain retail nature to some of the things we do at the park district. And so when we see golf having the types of years they've had in the last 2 or 3 years, we try to plan for 5-year averages. Well, all of a sudden, if golf becomes more popular and there's more people that are willing to pay for those services, those are revenues we didn't necessarily realize. So some of these might be offset by those types of things as well. But we certainly are thinking about, what does this mean in the future? How will we look at that? As you know, based on some fortunate timing of the market, we think 2023 has an opportunity to maybe present us with some revenues over expenditures, and maybe that can help replenish some of these things that we've done and minimize that impact to a certain degree. But we understand that we'll have to make this up over time, and we will do that annually in working with you when we work on those budgets.
It seems like with the one-time income, that it's about the best possible that we could do in a difficult situation. I'm glad to hear that we can move ahead and anticipate this year and next year.
But to further answer your question, Jerry, if I'm understanding correctly, so this makes us whole for the 2024 budget, but let's say in theory, we're reducing it so we attempted to reduce by 1.35 mils. So we're basically reducing at an extra 2.7 mils. So while we're made whole for this 2024 budget, we did reduce our mills an extra almost 2.7, which, you know, we would have to recapture those for the 2025 if we didn't. But like Brock said, there's other, you know, in valuation increases and different other areas that could come, but the number is almost 2.7 mils.
Right, yeah. I think that was my same question is, are we gonna just have to raise, now do we have to make it up, if you will, right? Raise by 2.7 next year? And I think the answer seems to be, we don't know, right? Right. To be determined.
Right.
Same question. Well, it's an unfortunate error, you know, but at least the silver lining of it is it's better that we would reduce mills than adding mills, right? From that perspective. And if we can look at some kind of silver lining of it all, and obviously as long as there's protocols in place, that should help hopefully eliminate this from happening in the future. I mean, I think that's helpful as well.
I mean, you know, thankfully, we are very solid. The Park District is very sound financially, and that helps us be in a position where we can recover without having to cut positions and take big hits in programming or things that we provide to the public. So, I mean, it'll be fairly seamless in that regard, which is really nice that we're set up so well. And I appreciate that you guys have figured out, okay, how do we make sure we don't misstep again? And that's, you know, that's how we all are in our lives. We hope that when we misstep, we figure out, okay, what did we do? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again and move forward? So I appreciate that you guys have gone through those processes to help catch things for the future. So.
Well, and I think we talked about this when Amy presented either last month or month before, but controls are so important, especially in today's electronic age with all the bad actors out there trying to, you know, swindle and steal and social engineer things. So the more we can review our control issues or our control sequences, so we feel solid that we have good defenses, that's important.
All right, with that, I'll move to amend the 2024 annual budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend or to consider for approval the request for the 2024 budget adjustment as presented. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Jeff, please pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Brock. Moving on to number 6, board to discuss next steps for executive director position. Commissioner Jerry Rosted presenting.
All right. Thank you, President Deutsch. Last summer, the board appointed Dave Beets and Susan Foss as interim co-executive directors. And at the time, the board said we'd revisit the long-term solution by the end of the calendar year. And here we are in December. Meanwhile, in September, we responded, the board did, to staff feedback and inserted Susan Foss as the interim executive director while Dave returned to his deputy director duties. And again, thank you, Dave, for your service. We appreciate it very much. And that's how we've been operating these past few months and arrived at tonight. And, you know, I think going forward, there's 3 primary options for the board to consider. And one would be to permanently appoint Susan. 2 would be to conduct an internal search, or 3 to conduct a full search. And if I'm missing any of the angles, please fill in the gaps. So that's kind of the background to where we're at. And, you know, I've got some comments on my thoughts, but I'll open the floor up and we can go from there.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosted. So I kind of took the liberty to, if you can pass these around, and Jeff, I'll be happy to submit this for the minutes if so desired. So I was kind of thinking about this conversation and where we would kind of the next steps, right? And so I was in my mind, I'm kind of leaning towards option 2 or 3. So I kind of created a bit of a sort of my thoughts on timelines and sort of things that need to be done in the meantime, some recommendations. And so my thought was by the January board meeting, we would sort of have the job description approved, sort of a structure identified and a timeline presented. And we would approve that in January, as you can kind of see in the notes. I've kind of have just, and this is just, ideas, obviously, right? I'm not officially submitting this as a formal proposal right now. But, having two commissioners involved, ideally, my thoughts were president and vice president. I will gladly volunteer and raise my hand. I don't necessarily enjoy volunteering other people. So if the president doesn't feel that that's the way we should do it, that's understandable. I just have some ideas of members that I just thought of initially for community members, who could be involved, possibly having some staff members, and then HR representative. So, and then the timeline, of course, so when we post the description, internal or external only, when is it open, from when to when, resume review process. My thoughts, again, just my thoughts initially are that the two commissioners are the ones who review the candidates. We'll obviously have some minimum qualifications from an HR filter standpoint, but then those two commissioners basically kind of narrow it down to my initial ideas, 3 finalists, and then try to schedule your interview dates. And if we can try to get all of the interviews on one day, kind of for time, for kind of scheduling perspective, I think that would be ideal. And then schedule a kind of like a follow-up meeting, if you will, to have the sort of committee discuss it and sort of try to be clear that ultimately this is the commissioner's decision, and the community involvement or the staff involvement would sort of be to get buy-in, to get feedback, but ultimately it's not wouldn't be a true, what I would call a democratic process of, well, the committee voted and decided. It would be the two commissioners would need to kind of approve, and then hopefully the board would authorize those commissioners to negotiate with the candidate. As you can see my thought was just by the April board meeting. So we come back, present, review, and discuss the recommendation. So those two commissioners would sort of bring ideally the negotiated contract with the salary recommendation and the commencement date, and ideally have the board approve the new executive director in April.
I just like to speak up and say that my first choice would be the first, that we appoint Susan Foss to the executive director's position. The reason is I have been so happy with the way things have been going. Since we no longer have our previous executive director, the two deputy directors have worked so well together. And I've just seen a miraculous change in the Parks Department, and also that it seems like the staff is so much more comfortable. Everything just seems to be flowing so much better. And with Susan Foss, having moved back to Fargo, she had run against Leaker previously. And she moved back to Fargo to take this job if it was offered to her. And you had mentioned that she has been interviewed, is it 3 times? And, in terms of her qualifications and her experience, I just think she's the most wonderful candidate we could have. We're just lucky that she's interested in the position. I also don't think that, having been in the nonprofit world before and having been on a lot of committees, I don't think a position like this should be decided or even recommended by committees. They have a tendency to come from their own background. They don't know the internal works of the organization, and they have a sense of giving a personal opinion. And for that reason, I think that since we have all experienced what can be possible for the Park District, that I just think Susan is the obvious choice.
So, my first thought is we've gone through a search. We've gone through actually several searches. Susan was one of the top candidates when we were looking for an executive director 3.5 years ago, and rose to the top of that heap. When we were looking for 2 different deputy directors to hire for, she applied for both positions and was at the top of both of those. And since then, she's worked for us for more than a year as a deputy director and now as the interim executive director. And everything we've seen shows us that she's the leader that we need. Everything she's done, the way she collaborates with others, the way she works with the community, her internal workings with the board. She brings to this park district what we've needed. At our park board retreat on November 30th, I was jotting down some notes as Dave Beets and Susan were sharing, the executive leadership team and what they were looking towards for the future and what they've accomplished in the past. And just some of my notes were, they have 3 focus areas: vision, leadership, and communication. We've never really gone down that path before of looking forward, of forward focus. During that same meeting, while we were in attendance, every employee in that room was giving kudos to each other. They were constantly attaboys to who they were working with, giving props to the people who worked on a project with them. Just the environment that's been created over the past handful of months has been so inspiring. I have some key takeaways from that meeting that I just jotted down: engaging employees, better communication, employee feedback. Now I can't read my own writing. Giving credit to others, significant community engagement, and again, I can't read my last one. Oh, and asking employees for their input and getting input from employees. And I mean, it's just truly, she fits exactly what this board needs. We could go through this process, but where she's going to come up on top as well. We haven't seen anyone else who's applied for any of these jobs in the past few years that's risen to her status, to her qualifications. I mean, she's already here. We're rolling along. Things are going well. I just don't see what even possibly could happen with the search other than losing precious time on the quality of environment in the workspace that we've seen with the staff and the community that we have right now with Susan.
And I want to clarify too that, my feelings or thoughts towards this is I think Susan has done a great job, as has Dave Beets, and this is not a what I would call it a lack of faith in Susan, or that I've seen anything that makes me mistrust or feel like she would be the wrong candidate. But I mean, we didn't know who she was prior to her applying for the job when it was posted, right? And so she, I would say, came out of that process. And so there's in my mind too, there's a potential benefit of doing some sort of a process. Well, that would be more of that full external process, is who are some other people that might come out of this process that we don't even know they're interested in working at the park district. And I just think about, like, for me, it's the 2 words that keep coming back to my mind is trust and transparency, right? And as we're going through this strategic planning process, I think we all heard Dr. Schatz talk about that, trust and transparency. And I haven't been a part of previous searches and processes, and so I guess I haven't been through this before at the park district, or I didn't interview her for the executive director role. So I mean, there's that component of it, but for me, it's not about the person, it's about the process is where I'm kind of falling on this.
Sometimes we can get bogged down in process too, and it seems like with Susan, we've been through the process several times already, and she rises to the top every time. So I would really like to see the park district get back to work. We've talked about several things that are of high importance tonight, and I would like to see the first of the year come around and that we're stable on our feet and moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate what Don and Vicky have already said. She's within 3.5 short years, she's risen to the top on 3 separate searches, and the first one was a national search. So, I mean, she's been through the process, and we've identified her 3 separate occasions that she's a top candidate. And then to reiterate some of the comments that Vicky had about her performance, she established and distributed some accomplishments and goals for the admin department, sent them out, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen like this before. I mean, it was well done. The retreat, all the presentations, everything, it was just attention to details. It was just well done. And accountability and transparency was a couple other keywords that I'll add on to what Vicky said. And even to, suggest we're going to change this director's team to a leadership team. I mean, that's just like, wow, that's great stuff. That's, that's heartwarming. She's hitting the right buttons and doing the right things.
Communications has improved so much greatly since she has been working to order things more efficiently and speak more clearly. And I think of the transparency, I can't imagine that anyone could be more straightforward and to the point and insightful.
Got any comments?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that everybody said at the table. I do. I understand. I agree with everything, every glowing thing anybody said about Susan, but I also understand Aaron's concern and I about the trust and transparency of the process of needing to do this for the process. So, we had our retreat, and that retreat was amazing, and she and Dave put together an amazing retreat. The end of the retreat was intended to have this discussion so that we could try to, have discussion, and instead of the situation where we're in right now, where it seems more like a debate. So I don't like that. I wish we could find some common ground, but I can support anything. Because at the end of the day, I believe that she will get the job. I believe she's the right person for the job, but I do understand everybody's perspective and appreciate everybody's perspective.
Well said.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, some of the staff that I've talked to is like, they're waiting for us to move on. We've got the right person in place. So what are you waiting for? So, that there's a trust and transparency to that too. I guess based on that, I'm going to make a motion here to permanently appoint Susan Foss. So the motion would be, I move to make Susan Foss the Executive Director of the Fargo Park District, and I direct Board President, Legal Counsel to negotiate the terms of employment, to present an employment contract to the full Board of Commissioners for consideration at the January 9th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
There's motion second to approve the motion that Jerry stated. Are there details of that we have to discuss through the motion? Like, negotiating contract.
We'd have to approve the job description, correct? We haven't formally done that.
I feel like there's steps in here.
I don't think there are steps at this point. I think what we need to do is appoint Susan, and then following that will be the process.
Can you confirm that, Jeff?
I think that's what his
yeah.
Isn't that what his motion says? We're going to
Yeah,
negotiate
so
the
it sounds like
details?
what Jerry's saying is appoint Susan as the executive director of the park district, and then directing the board president and myself to negotiate the terms of her employment going forward, and to present an employment agreement outlining those terms at the January 9th meeting.
So it's essentially appointing as executive director pending.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe she won't sign on the dotted line.
I was going to say that would be another thing. I mean, that's in all seriousness.
No, I missed the part about being the president. I was just wondering which of us or whatever. I missed the part where you said the president. So I got it. Thank you.
So just before we vote, I just want to again go on record and state that this is for me, it's about process and not about the individual. And if the board decides to approve this, I have all the faith in Susan as the executive director, and I will gladly work with her and move the park district forward.
And I also, like I said, agree with and support everybody's opinions here, and my vote doesn't reflect support or not support for either side of the situation. My ultimate wish and hope would have been that we could have found common ground in the middle, but hey. Any other discussion? Jeff, please pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Nay.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch.
Aye. Motion carries.
Congratulations, Susan.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say
Congratulations,
that you've been very quiet. Congratulations.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just really sorry that I'm not able to be down in the boardroom tonight, but I just want to thank you for the support and all of the kind words. Our entire team has worked really hard, the last several months, and I'm just incredibly honored to take on the role of executive director. We have a fantastic team, we have a fantastic community, and I think we just have such great opportunities that lie ahead. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're saying you accept then?
Well, I haven't seen the dotted line, as Don said.
Okay.
This is where Vicky makes a lowball salary offer, right?
It's so much
It can only
fun.
go
It's
up
worth
from there.
doing for free.
It can only go up from there. All right, any other good of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.